Hello and welcome back from the break. I hope you enjoyed your free time, had a little bit of a look at the D-School house and at the environment. We had a last session on education on a global scale and the impact of design thinking for those of you who weren't here. And now in this session, we'll have a look at product, service, business design, and organizational transformation. We have a variety of very diverse and interesting speakers for this panel. I'm very excited to have you all here. We're going to have with us Professor Uli Weinberg, the director of the HPI D-School. We have with us Uwe Raschke, who is a former member of the board of management at Bosch. Hiromi Hara, who's the managing director of SAP Labs in Japan. Gerhard Pfau, who's the head of design at IBM. And Lorenz Wyss, who's the head of innovation management at Swiss Post. Please give them all a warm welcome. I leave the moderation to you, Uli, and enjoy the panel.
Thank you very much, Miriam. Yeah, this is... No, why is expecting that? Now it's down, but we'll keep it up. Oh, high tech here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us here live and also online. I'm looking forward to this kind of 15-minute, which we gave us, panel with 4 big wigs, I would say, big companies we have. And it's, for me, it's a real pleasure that I know nearly all of you. We met recently, but I know all of you for several years now, which is actually great. And I have the pleasure to moderate and to also invite all of you to co-moderate, actually, to ask questions and come in with interesting ideas or insights also. And we got the introduction. We have the Swiss. We have people from 3 different countries here, and from very different companies, and they all have experience with design thinking, and they all have experience with design thinking not in a way is when I got in touch with design thinking 15 years ago, first time at the D-School Stanford, that was very much about product innovation, service innovation, and yes, it is still. A lot of people are using design thinking, and that is for surely clear, for this kind of activities. But through the years, it became more and more clear to us as the School of Design Thinking and to organizations that design thinking can do other things and can do way more and reach out into the culture of the organization and help leaders in organizations to be a part of that transformation path and to kind of steer that transformation path in the organization towards a better future, towards a better work environment. And that is something I would like to address. But I would actually also be interested in your paths, in your kind of journeys, because we have, Gerhard Pfau, for example, as a designer, traditional designer. And you have been also in the design field somewhere somewhere, no? But let's start maybe with Uwe Raschke. Uwe, we met, I think it was 6 years ago, first time in Stuttgart at the Bosch Foundation at a workshop, at something, a leadership meeting with about transformation, I remember. And it was my first getting in touch with Bosch, 400,000 people company, and at that time you were positioned as actually the the board, one of the 10 board members, or was it 11? 10, to drive innovation for this whole huge company. And at that time, I had only experiences with companies like SAP, with 70,000 people, and that was already a kind of mind-blowing number to do transformation. But looking at Bosch and your experiences, is it actually possible with that kind of big tanker to become agile or to become a design thinking driven organization?
Yeah, good question. 8 years ago, after having returned from China, where I've been for several years, and experienced a very agile society, and I took over the responsibility for the consumer business in Bosch and for user experience for the whole group. I was said, now you have to become agile, Uwe. And of course your units too. And I asked, what does it mean actually? I'm for 50 years very agile. What should I change? And nobody had a definition at that time. There were no books, no McKinsey reports. The remarkable Hara organization of the Chinese appliance manufacturer was not known. So everybody was talking about it. Nobody knew actually what it meant. So I had to undergo a very personal journey, a learning journey, and I confronted myself with the ideas of Danny Pink, who said, mastery, autonomy, purpose is important for motivation. I got to know Gary Hamel, who did research how organized people themselves in the net compared how are they organized in big organizations. Huge differences. I read about Netflix culture. I learned about Zappo's holacracy. And of course, I got to know design thinking, which was fascinating to me, but I was not much interested in design thinking as a tool. I asked myself, how can I build an organization which is based on the idea, where design thinking is not a Friday afternoon with nice red chairs and post-its, which is a lasting organizational approach and a mindset which is not changed easily. And after this learning journey, which lasted for me at least more than a year, my answer is yes, a big company can be agile, but you have to do some things. First, you have to fragment it. So we fragmented our power tool division in 50 small businesses. Second, you have to create cross-functional organizations which work steadily cross-functional, not only on Friday afternoon. This we did. Third, you have to take out hierarchy levels. We are over-managed and under-led in many companies. We have by far too many management by having too many hierarchy levels. You don't need this. Fourth, you need a totally new HR system. And we really revolutionized our HR toolbox in a way that now superiors were no longer allowed to say this member has to come in this team. The team decided who is coming to the team and no longer the superiors. And fifth, you need a totally different way of communication. The communication in big companies today is poor against what Twitter is able to do. So, and if you do this, at least from my understanding, this is not a blueprint for everybody, but this would be a good recipe for getting more agile, fast, adaptive, user-centered, and a place people have fun to work for. And this would be my short answer to the long question.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks a lot. That gives me a positive impulse, actually, and also since I was a little bit witnessing what was happening through the past six, 7 years at Bosch, which is still happening. You know, that is for me, that is one of my best examples when I talk about the impact of design thinking in large organizations, that there is actually a chance to do something, but it takes also a while. You know, it was not something for 1 year or half a year or so with a little bit of training of some people, and no, it is an ongoing process.
And we used HPI very intensively for our own training activities, but soon it was too small, and now we have trained 25,000 people in Bosch in design thinking. 25,000 in MOOCs. So, and the concept is so attractive. People love it. They really love it, especially working without bosses.
Let's move to SAP, and I can share also one. I mean, we have I just see other faces who know that story here. Like I have also my own experience with design thinking with SAP, because that was our first kind of corporate which got in touch with us, of course, through a person called Hasso Plattner, who is the sponsor here at the HPI. But like 15 years ago, when he brought design thinking to Germany, one of his first things was not only to bring it in the academic field like here, but to SAP with the design services team. Is that right? Is that still existing? Look at
confirmation.
So it's different. So I ask you later. So, and at that time, we had several meetings, and also looking at a necessary cultural change in the organization. And there was that number. I remember at that time Jim Hagemann-Snabe was the CEO, and I was sitting together with him in Waldorf. He was at that time it was 60,000 or 70,000 people, and his idea was, let's train every year 10,000 people in design thinking. That is like 13 years ago. And my answer was, oh yes, we can try that, but we are just 4 people in Potsdam, so how can we do that? And that is a question on scale. And for you, Hiromi, looking back, and you were for some years at SAP in Japan, but you were in contact with design thinking. So how did what would you say? What is a good way to scale that kind of approach in an organization? And what is your recipe? Do you have one? I didn't have one at that time.
Okay, actually, to begin with, other way of introduction of myself, I'd like to start like this. Yesterday, I received a notification from Facebook saying, you are here in this Potsdam University to attend the conference. The Confestival as a participant.
Yeah.
And I feel very honored to be here as a speaker today. Yeah, at that time I was, sitting on the other side of the house, listening to all the, speeches from experienced people. But now I have a sort of the contents to share with you, and of course I'm still learning from you. But during these 5 years, I've involved in, disseminating the message, design thinking is good things. And like you already mentioned, this can be the enabler for the change of culture into a more innovation-friendly way. Even though, like you already mentioned, our founder and executive board member said design thinking can be the next DNA for whole SAP, entire SAP employee, irrespective of, I'm working for financial, I'm working for IT, I'm working for general admin. So design thinking is far away from us. This is not the attitude we expect. Yeah, that is the explanation we received from the executive at that time. It was, I think, 2013. At the time, I was appointed as the sort of design thinking evangelist, I would call it, evangelist in SAP Japan. But my concentration area was to, transformation of customer engagement. We can leverage, design thinking idea to, engage differently with customers. But actually, for a certain while, I realized everybody under SAP Japan would like to leverage this fantastic idea, not only just observing what's happening outside of SAP Japan as a customer engagement. They would like to leverage this because this can be an enabler of the vision setting. This can be your enabler for cultural change, as you already mentioned. So I had a thought, maybe I can use this as an enabler for cultural change, and that's why I came here to observe what's happening in this context, in this community, and the Confestival. And I was so convinced, okay, this is a good tool, good mindset, good, enabler for cultural change. And after that, I implemented this design thinking idea as a platform for innovative conversation or mindset change in SAP Japan. And also, even though SAP heavily provide the education opportunity for entire SAP employee, but you also need some kind of cultural context. I'm based out SAP Japan, Tokyo. So Tokyo needs some kind of different approach to implement this idea to, the SAP Japan people. So I sort of add some kind of flavor to adjust this SAP design thinking way into SAP Japan employees.
Yeah.
So that's what I did for the past 5 years, and I'm here to share my experience.
It's great. I didn't know that kind of the deconfessible 5 years ago was a trigger for you to move into that.
You convinced me.
So, but one other additional question regarding the cultural differences. You were talking about the design thinking, the SAP design thinking, and then the specialty for Japan. Mm-hmm. Could you point on something? What is special in Japan compared to Waldorf, for example?
It's a very good question, actually. I think the commonality, not only Japanese companies, but also all over the world. I think many big companies have suffered from one disease or symptom. They, once fall in love with design thinking, but they just, try out and, okay, we understand, just forget it and just go on, vanished. No design thinking forever, And I call it like this is a memory of summer vacation. They have a good memory with design thinking, but they just experience, okay, it's good things, but this is kind of similar with lateral thinking or, logical thinking, whatever, you name it, but they treat this just as a deviation of those kind of, methodology, so they just forget it, even though they wanted to implement as a, new cultural or innovation enabler, but they just treat this as one kind of methodology. So I think we need to implement this as something different. If you come to the class of design thinking coach camp, you very focusing onto the side of mindset and team setting. I think this is the good enabler for design thinking mechanism really happens, but in the corporate sector, always people forget about, this is kind of methodology, and you can use this tool, persona, this processes, blah, 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 but they forget about the mindset part. So that is unfortunate part, which is common to all over the world, I suppose. And as for the Japanese company side, this is my observation, but the Japanese people oftentimes not confident in their creativity, even though they are creative. So they often need to have their license for their creative confidence. So what I've observed within SAP Japan and also other Japanese company, after they are trained for design thinking, they suddenly become confident. Okay, maybe I can be creative more, like Steve Jobs, maybe, I don't know. But they suddenly, very proactive in, participating in the campaign for entrepreneurship programs, such and such. So I think that it's part of the keynote today, but this is not the intention for implementing design thinking to send the people into the entrepreneurship program or to, cultivate the culture for entrepreneurship or such and such, but in the end, at the end of the day, we see many, entrepreneurial people within the company, within Japanese company. So I think that's a good effect, convincing people and encourage people who works for Japanese company to become more creative and confident in creativity.
Great. Yeah. Thanks. I think I'll later in the discussion I would like to ask Andreas Hauser about the differences between the app house in Heidelberg in Germany and the app house in Tokyo, if there is one. I'm not sure. You're working on it. Okay. But let's switch to Switzerland and to Lorenz Wyss, who's the Vice President for Innovation Management at Swiss Post. And actually, Lorenz, you studied geography and economics, which is already a combination of interesting things, you know. But what brought you to design thinking, and what made you do something which I got the chance to witness, to see, I think 3 or 4 years ago when I was visiting in Bern, building up a design thinking lab, a large-scale design thinking lab at Swiss Post. But what brought you to design thinking?
If you start with geography and economics, that's true. It's even worse because after just studying at university, I went to the gastronomia, completely different, and then to event management and marketing. So and after 10 years of this agency rock and roll business, I had the opportunity to join a Swiss Post. It's 11 years ago to the innovation management team. And basically, 11 years ago, there weren't many companies with a distinctive innovation team or innovation department. And I had the chance to visit an innovation conference, one of the first one, I guess, and there was a little breakout session with the title Design Thinking. So we went there, and not many people because it was something definitely new. Great, today we are celebrating a festival of this discipline, so nice journey. But coming back to a Swiss Post, we as an innovation team or innovation people, we try to enable the whole company to become more innovative. So we try to empower the innovation fitness of a company. And based on these 3 patterns, like systematically process or bringing different disciplines and exercises together, there is this 3rd dimension of the space. So I from the beginning on, I was really digging in there. What can do space in the way of how we think and how we do and how we work, etc., etc. So that's a couple of years ago. And then we knew that we have to provide a kind of a space to do work differently. 7, 8 years ago, and we tried to create some spaces around Switzerland together with other companies, and because in our new headquarters back then in 2014, 2015, the whole Swiss Post headquarters moved, 2,000 people, and super building, like a palace, was wonderful, but 2,000 working stations, same, one size fits all. So, and we realized you cannot become innovative in this surroundings. And then we created together with other companies based in Bern, in the capital city of Switzerland, like a transformation space off-site of the headquarters. And we had there our innovation sprints, like the Google sprints, boost camps, etc., etc. And we bring our top management to the pitches in the end of the week there. And it's only 20 minutes away from the headquarters to this place. But after maybe 1 year or 10 months, the managers came to me and said, Lorenz, it's too far away, you know. Only 20 minutes, so we're Swiss people, so we are not used to have big distances. So, and then I had the chance at the headquarters that I found a place or like a corner around 500 square meters that was empty, and I said, okay, let's try and build up an innovation lab over there. And coming back to your question, what we've learned, or what I would say, what is the design thinking nugget in between in the story is that if we didn't have done this innovation space offsite, it was nothing else than a prototype. It was nothing else than making something tangible. Because if I would have gone to the management with my PowerPoint slides and ask them, listen, would be nice, and let's do a lab or create such a space, they wouldn't have felt it. So my very simple advice is make things tangible, make things that the people can touch it, they can feel it. And when they can feel it and live with it, and then one step will bring the other.
Yeah, I got the chance to visit that space, that kind of 500 square meters, and that reminded me to our 500 square meters here when we started the D-School. It was also 500 square meters of place. Let me just say, it was my son. Yeah. I was so happy to see that you were using our furniture, all the tables and whiteboards. So that was one thing. But one thing struck me. You were saying, I didn't know that you heard this thing outside before, like 20 minutes, and now it's inside the organization. Is it felt by the people who are working there as a normal thing to go, like once a week I step by and look what they are doing because I know that is a creative space? Or how does it feel now because it's a huge building as you told. It's a kind of palace where you are.
For sure, and this is a challenge because everyone wants to come and have their team meetings there or bringing their projects in, etc., etc. So, and our very simple value proposition of our lab is that we say, if you join the lab or check in with your team in the lab, you will be better than if you're not joining the lab. What means we have to be very, very strict that we be with very strict in terms of that the teams they bring in the principles of bringing a designer within, have a diverse setup within their team, that they work in sprints, that they work human-centered, that they get steady customer interaction and doing tests and prototypes once a week, twice a week, maybe 14 days, at least one test. And these principles we are very strict at. And if you want to work like this, you're welcome. If not, we refuse. And that's a good thing, I think, a good key that we keep these principles to transform the whole company. Because if we would not be strict there, I think teams will come, not follow these principles, and it wouldn't have that much success or wouldn't work that human-centered.
Yeah, thanks. Let's move to Gerhard Pfau, to another huge company, IBM. And we are in touch also since several years. And I was always really impressed about the way how IBM is framing design thinking at their special. You have your own kind of design thinking framework generated. Yes, you are using very, very similar terms, yeah, but you have made it in a way that it's really easy communicatable also in the organization. And when I was there, what was it, the 10th anniversary?
You visited us at 2019, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had the impression, yes, there is a huge and strong design thinking community within IBM, and design plays also a large role. So how would you describe? You are the head of design for IBM Technology Support Services. Is that right?
That's a division. Yeah.
Yes, but I have seen you are. There are different labs, similar to what Lorenz is describing. Right. There's in Germany and.
When we met, I was still my old role, okay. So I can maybe say two words to that. So actually, I joined IBM 1996. So that was 30 years after our CEO said this famous sentence, good design is good business. So when I joined, there was not much of design left, I should say, right? That changed totally when Ginny Rometty became CEO, and she took design and put it at the forefront. I was at that time a design lead in our organization, but I ended up doing more and more design thinking engagements with sellers, with internal teams. And then I knocked at the door of our then general manager design at some point saying, hey, I can either do this or that, but I can't do both. And that's when I joined our design thinking movement. Mm-hmm. And actually the design thinking movement, interestingly, came out of necessity because we wanted to bring back design to IBM. But we realized we can only make this happen when more people than just this like these 1,500 designers we hired, when the entire organization is supporting them. And how do you create this love for human-centered design in people? You teach them design thinking. Yeah. So that for us, I mean, when the first time we met actually was I think in 2016 when I was
Berlin.
Right, I was giving a keynote at Typo at the design conference about IBM's design transformation. And it was all about people, places, practices. So your places story totally resonated with me. But we, at that time, it was like establishing that culture and establishing it at scale. Yeah, and so that was really interesting for us because you mentioned like you trained 40,000 people. We had like at that time IBM was 30, not exactly 400,000 than yours, Uwe, but it was 380,000 people strong. And we said, okay, how can we do this? We were a really small team, yeah. And we started with a lot of like projects were able to self-nominate if they wanted to be in the program. Then they got proper design support, and that helped. So we created showcases. We created light tower projects, which others would look then and say, we want to be a little bit like them, right? I mean, their outcomes are markedly better, yeah, than what we did before. So that was a big plus. And then spaces. I mean, you have to. We were really fearful. I mean, IBM at that time was really a technology shop and super engineering-driven culture. So we were frightened that if we would put those designers into those engineering teams, they would be totally overwhelmed and had no effect. So we built studios. I built the third studio. Now we have about 100. So the one you visited was number 3 to open, and it was special because it was the first one not funded by corporate money. I've seen the one funded by corporate money in Austin, Texas, and I said, I want to do this back home. I spoke to my boss and said, we have no money, we have to find it. And we knocked down a few walls and then built a space in the middle of the campus. And we put stainless steel sheets, signs up on the door, so to give people the impression this is here to last. This will be here forever. Yeah, just so you know, right? You're walking down here, see those stainless steel shields, laser cut with the logo on it. They will live longer than you. Well, probably they won't because we're moving to another place. Yeah, but just to initiate that cultural change. I mean, the tangible things are so important for all of us, right? And this was for them. They could observe every day that IBM is changing, and they better get behind it. Yeah, so that created interest and movement. Yeah.
And that was where? At which location was that?
That was in Böblingen.
That was in Böblingen. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I visited also the one in Hamburg.
Yeah.
That was
Hamburg was 1 year later. We worked together with them very closely. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting how that.
You also got the wonderful whiteboards you have designed.
And now you're saying there's hundred of those labs.
There's roughly 100 studios, but they're like big and small. Yeah. So the biggest one is Austin, Texas. Several hundred people there. There are somewhere only 10 or so. Yeah. But I mean, the fun thing is like you're in a big company. People talk about what's going on, and they say, what did these guys in Böblingen did that? Well, if they can do it, we can do it too. Yeah, and they find ways to do it. Yeah, and so never underestimate the creativity of people if you just put them put them on a challenge. Yeah, so that worked actually really well. And then I mean the big challenge after I joined, I became the head of enterprise design thinking in Europe, which meant I was working with internal teams with clients to just show them how they can get value from using a human-centered approach. And that was a lot face-to-face, which I totally loved. But we were seeing we're not getting to the scale by just doing face-to-face. We were a team of like 20 people. We did roadshows all over the place, like Bangalore, New York, all over Europe. But as you said, I mean, it's just like it's only getting that far, right? I mean, we get to sleep, we get to eat. So what came out of our services organization, they were playing with like electronic enablement in the sense of like online courses. And I was super skeptical at the beginning. What we found out then was to teach people the basic principles of design thinking. This doesn't make them design thinkers, but it makes them aware of it. Mm-hmm. And we rolled out this course, and I checked the numbers. So
it was an online course.
It is an online course. it takes about 3 hours. So you can, it's a very lightweight, but it's teaching people the principles. So by now it's 400,000 people who did that course. So it's more than we have employees, quite frankly. Yeah? Because during the pandemic, we opened that all up to the world because we said that's our contribution. Yeah, I mean, if you're sitting back home, so we want to give you some tools. So that's the lowest level. But it's when I'm going somewhere to run an engagement, I'm always telling people, get this badge first. We give out badges, electronic badges. People like those badges. I got a badge. Yeah, and so that actually works because then I don't need to do the introduction. They know what the basic principles of design thinking are, and then based on that, that accelerated our rollout of design thinking and created trends. Yeah.
We have 15 minutes to go now, and I
could speak
have
forever.
Several questions, especially regarding scaling, to all of you, because you have all different stories to tell about scaling. But I would like to ask if there is any immediate question or remark from the audience here or online. Miriam, is there something?
Questions from the online audience. Some of you have touched upon these, I guess, already, but some may not, or you might want to add something to what you've already said. So it's a question around, is there something like a key ingredient for a successful integration of design thinking into your businesses? And is there one crucial lesson learned that you'd like to share?
Key ingredient.
I can say something to that.
Yeah.
So for us, one key ingredient was, well, you need the support from the top, and then you need to, which we had done, check. And then you need to engage, you need to create excitement with people. So we were able to do that relatively quickly. It still didn't produce outcomes, because where it was falling flat was that middle management was blocking that all. So they were not on board. Yeah. So we started then creating, we called this design bootcamp for business leaders. It was just to create friends in the middle management tiers. Yeah. So that would be my answer.
Maybe another ingredient, a very physical one. I would like to say, give people walls. Just give people walls that they can draw and that they can put the post-its on it. And because a flip chart has this size, so our thinking will always be that size. And if you give people walls and really space, it's like they're thinking further and further and further. So there is no wall at our lab which is not editable or not drawable. And I think this is a very easy ingredient. Give people walls.
Yeah. Actually, at our place, when we got our 500 square meters here, we had to get rid of walls because there was no open space. And then we put in our whiteboards as walls to write on. And now we have also the walls, nearly all the walls are writable on. And my first getting in touch with the app house in Palo Alto at that time was also make every wall writable, everything. And it was an interesting experience. If you go to the toilet and you see the whole wall in the toilet can also be drawn on. There were people right there. It's like, so other comment to the ingredients?
Yeah, I believe the idea is speaking for itself. Whenever people work the first time with it, it's fascinating for them. This is not a problem of acceptance at all. The big problem starts if I would not create a reality afterwards where I can further go on with these principles. What I said earlier, it's not a Friday afternoon design thinking day. And if I come back and then my boss tells me what to do, or I have functional silos which have own ideas and start fighting against these design thinkers, these diverse group of young revolutionary people and whatever, then I get frustrated. And I believe we have to match this. Just to learn the tool is not sufficient. This will not change our reality in companies. We have to direct the company in a way that this is a daily working style. And that means for middle management, sorry to say so, a basic substantial question. If they don't change, they will have a big problem in this world in future.
Right.
So they have to change dramatically, discussing what actually would be their task in future in this world, where we learn that a diverse round of people from the basic is generating in short time better results than any manager would have done 10 years ago. And this learning process, I was trained to think for people, but now managers have to learn to think with people. This is a big difference.
That's actually, that is, yeah.
And that brings me to another one, because if I would ask the top management what is the most important KPI within an organization, I think you would say maybe revenue, or I don't know. And if I'm talking as an innovation guy or an innovation manager, I would rather say it's the steepness of the learning curve. So the faster we can learn, the faster we can prototype, the faster we can validate any ideas, that is the most important thing, because nobody of us can predict the future. So we only can anticipate it with small steps. So if the steepness of the learning curve is very, very high, I think this is the most important KPI.
Yep. Doing something right.
Yeah. Yeah, that is, I had that, that reminds me to an interesting moment in time in our history here when we were accompanying a bank we started accompanying a bank with design thinking, and they were running through a lean process before with another organization. And there was a moment in a larger city where they called lots of leaders together, and there was McKinsey was doing the lean thing, and the director of the bank, he was in his statement then he was saying, okay, now we are a lean company, and we did this with McKinsey, and thank you very much for that. And our next step is to become a learning company, from lean to learn. And that is what we are doing together with the design thinkers from HPI. And I was so happy, you know, that, yeah, there's design. Our friends from McKinsey, actually our friends from McKinsey are around here because they are helping us on the strategy, so it's not, I'm not blaming anybody. But I thought that was a very good explanation of what is happening with a company, you know. With becoming agile, you become a learning organization, and that is so important. You know, and especially the middle management, they have to learn that. Any other
from my side?
Yeah. Of course.
Can I answer this?
Yeah.
Okay. I have two ingredients for this. One is to make the mechanism work, you need to do a design thinking actually as a design thinker, and do a needs matching. And especially had hard time, you know, convincing middle management, like you experience. Yeah, they don't like, you know, the idea, you know, that spending some time in design thinking, which looks like, you know, they are just having fun, you know, without any concrete result. Yeah, but actually this is a time of investment in the people, investment in the future. So I turn it into this way, you know, this is not the cost, but actually this investment. So as a design thinker, I observe carefully with all the stakeholders of, you know, making this happen, and I provided, you know, nice food, nice, you know, food of thought for those stakeholders. But that's one thing. Another thing is, when I told by, you know, everybody who's involved in design thinking, they say 3 Ps are important, but I don't think it's insufficient. We need 4 P.
4 P.
Yeah, the last 4 P was passion.
Passion.
Yeah, passion moves the people, and if you can find the person who's passionate about changing or innovation, this is the right person to involve.
Yeah, you're right.
That's one.
You're right. Actually, that reminds me to when I visited the first floor in Leinfelden of Bosch Power Tools, which was kind of renewed. You gave me the chance to also to talk to some people there, and one of the people who showed me around, he was saying it was, and you were talking about the investment. He told me our management was asking us to think about the space and also the structure of the company, and he was like, at the beginning I thought, I was never asked to answer that kind of question that was always answered by my bosses. still by the higher management. And then he started to show me around and to say, but you know what happened when we did that? There's now, you see that team over there, and there is a person from the finance, from marketing, from development, and so on. We never had that, and they're so great. And that was, and maybe you explain that, because you gave them the time, and that was actually investing. It was not money. You gave them the time to think about their own setup. And I like that so much. And actually, I like that what that guy was telling me, that at the beginning he was saying, oh, we never asked. But then he was really passionate about it because he was actually involved.
Yeah, when I just in the beginning said there's a few principles, we built a prototype based on these principles. And we gave these prototypes to the teams and said, now you do your own organization. And then associates and said, Mr. Raschke, this is not, at this time it was still Mr. Raschke, today it's Uwe, of course. He said, this is not how we work. Normally our bosses are doing this, and then they ask their bosses for approval, and then we introduce it. We said, no, this time you have to do your own organization. These are the principles, this is the prototype, please discuss this prototype, these principles, and then come up with your proposals. How much time would we have? When you are ready, you are ready. Okay. And by the way, we need a renovation of this building. You should also design the space to different organizational units you are creating. And you can choose your own furniture. And you can choose your own colors, which was totally in charge of a corporate architectural department normally in a big company like Bosch, yes? They never could have chosen any colors for, there's a direction, number 512 colors in marketing rooms. Oh, I'm a little bit exaggerating, of course. And they have done this, and this was one part of the process and one of the success. Then it was their organization. It was not the organization from somebody who had an idea or a vision or whatever. And we discussed this intensively, but the quality was much better than it would have been if this would be have been done from some superiors only, as it was done in the past, yes?
Absolutely.
And I can only recommend this to dare those things. Also strategy making on others. Integrate your people.
Co-creating with users.
Yeah, exactly.
We have at least one question here from the auditorium. Do we have some?
We have many online questions.
Many online questions.
A lot you have touched upon
we have
already.
3 minutes.
We have 3 minutes left.
So
Yeah.
here's the chance.
Many short answers.
From quite a lot of the stories, I have the impression design thinking is something done in teams, and then the upper management has to allow it. How far up in the organization does design thinking go up? Till what extent do managers use it themselves to solve their problems, seeing their employees or whoever shareholders as their customers?
You're addressing a certain...
Basically, in the circle, are there any success stories of really upper management using design thinking to solve their, whatever they have to solve?
We started at board level, so yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The higher you go, the more difficult it will be in the beginning, to be quite honest. And yes, we have some experiences. And we have also board teams. Bosch is not one central organization. We have different divisions. These divisions have boards, where more and more boards start working together in exactly this way. Also working with sprints, having no offices anymore, standing together in a small room, small space in a big space, and have totally working styles. And also the Bosch board has started this some years ago, and with a high diversity it has, and tried to solve some problems with this design thinking approaches. But I have to say this is not the normal working style yet for everybody. And it needs a little bit more discussion about it than it starts when you start in the bottom of the hierarchy. This at least was my experience some years ago.
In SAP, like already Professor Lee described, it's all started from the founders, idea to implement design thinking at whole SAP. Yeah? So at the time, it was so big idea, even amongst board members or management people. But it's like that the tide. Sometimes it's high, sometimes it's very low. And I think sometimes we see the very low moment. So as a design thinking group, we try to make this tide up so that, sometimes board member or management people can say, okay, design thinking is a big idea, you can do it. I can observe it. So I'd like to, I'd like to take this kind of mindset from the board member or management member. So we'd like to push the tide.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid 26 seconds are not enough.
We can try.
Give it a try.
One question.
One question.
Because there are many, many questions, but many of them you also have touched upon. But there's one brand new one. It's a difficult one, so it's
Yeah.
How do you measure impact?
9 seconds. How do you measure impact?
Depends on the
Design thinking impact.
In design thinking impact, yes.
Depends on what you apply to, I'd say. At the end of the day, it's revenue, but can be employee engagement, can be anything. Innovation power.
I would say ROTI, return on time invested. So if someone does a project and based on design thinking principles, and if the result is better than without using design thinking principles, we're better. So a high ROTI one, like we call it return on time invested, and a high number there is a...
Thank you very much. So thank you very much to the panel. Thank you, Gerhard, Hiromi. No, Uwe, Gerhard, Hiromi, and Lorenz. Thanks for your input here, for your openness also, and thanks to all of you for being here and for the great questions. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.